Hi there, you guys. This is Dragon Ball and Cartoon Fan 2004 here. And as probably a lot of you know, I'm a big fan of King of the Hill. I love King of the Hill. Me and my family grew up watching King of the Hill off Adult Swim, on DVD, online, and all that. So I thought that would be a great idea to do this list that goes over what are my top 10 favorite King of the Hill episodes. Yes, guys, just so you know, this is an actual ranked list, an actual ranked top 10 list that goes over my 10 favorite episodes of the show ranks, because I know nowadays when I do list videos on YouTube, they're just like me, like randomly listing out certain things were my favorite things I like from like this certain type of genre or show or series or whatever. But this time I'm actually going over what are my top 10 favorite King of the Hill episodes ranked. And just so you guys know, there will be some spoilers up ahead. So of course, here's a spoiler alert. And also just so you guys know, if you want to, you can tell me in the comment section down below what your favorite King of the Hill episodes are, or what you think of my list and all that. And also just so you guys know, my opinion has changed a lot, so this list might not be permanent. And okay. So it also, just so you guys know, there will be no honorable mentions for this list, because I think there's too many great episodes of the show. Yeah, I could do an honorable mentions list, but I'm kind of too lazy to do that, honestly. And there's too many great episodes of the show. Like an honorable mentions video, an honorable mentions list, that could probably get its own video, honestly. But okay, with all that being said, I'm just gonna get started with my list. Here it is. Number 10, the Texas Skill Saw Massacre. The episode where Hank accidentally gets Dale's finger cut off and he goes to anger management class. It's a great episode. I really like the plot of Dale having dug a tunnel from Hank's house to his house, a two-way friendship tube. And this tunnel gets Hank's house closed, and that's what leads to the Hills moving in with the Gribbles. And honestly, even though like the whole finger cut off scene is the biggest part of the episode, I think my favorite scene in the episode would be the scene where Dale watches TV in Hank and Peggy's bedroom. I love that scene with the exploding mailbox and all that. That's pretty funny. That's a pretty funny scene right there. This episode's a pure classic. It has great comedy in it, quotable lines, great plot, all around classic. I also think it's always been among my favorites from season 7 and among my favorites from the Hank-centric episodes. Moving on. Number 9, Bobby Goes Nuts. Oh my god, the amount of YouTube poops there are of this episode. And I can imagine you guys expecting this episode to be higher. I thought about maybe having this be somewhere in the top 5, but no, I don't think it's that great of an episode, but it's still a very great episode, and I think it's worthy of at least mentioning, and I think it definitely belongs on a top 10 most iconic King of the Hill episodes list. But best episodes, like I said, it totally belongs on there too, because this is still a very great episode. It's really funny. Bobby going to the YMCA, learning to kick people, and it's a great episode. I really like the sleepover. I really like the slumber party stuff, like the slumber party prologue at the beginning, with Shane Wasan coming into the party, Bobby coming into the party, and Joseph watching the party with the goggles. And some really funny comedy in the episode with Bobby going around kicking people, even his father. And there's a really good Peggy versus Bobby fight scene at the end. And there's some pretty funny quotable lines from Khan in the episode. In my opinion, some of Khan's best lines are in this episode. Overall, a great classic episode. It's no wonder why I've seen people put this episode on their top 10. I've seen a good chunk of people have this on their top 5, and I can see why. Overall, great episode. Deserves to be on the list. Number 8, 'Twas the Nut Before Christmas. That's kind of a funny playoff title right there, in my opinion. 'Twas the Nut Before Christmas. Obviously, a playoff of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. But apart from the title, this is my second favorite holiday-themed episode of King of the Hill. With first place, I'll talk more about later in this video. But this episode is great. I love the plot of Bill being dressed as Santa Claus, giving gifts to kids, and even after the Christmas season's over, he still doesn't want to give up the Christmas stuff. He's still rocking the Santa outfit. He's still rocking the Santa beard. He's still got the Santa bounce house up, all these Christmas decorations up, and it's a great episode. I also really like I also really like Wally, the kid he meets, and he's a really cool character. And I also really like how Bobby gets in trouble with drinking beer and going to the bounce house with Joseph and with Joseph and Connie, and with Wally being there. Overall, great episode. Love it. Got some really funny comedy in it, and I think it will always be among my favorite Bill-centric episodes. Awesome episode. Number 7, To Kill a Ladybird. Love this episode. If it weren't for the Dale stuff in this episode, I can imagine this one not reaching top 10. But I don't know. I think if it weren't for the Dale stuff in this episode, though, it could maybe still be top 10. I don't know, maybe at least an honorable mention. But this is still a great episode, even outside the Dale stuff. I really like the plot of Bobby, wrongfully, if that's even a word, feeding a raccoon feeding a raccoon like leftover food and trash and all that. And I also really like how later in the episode, raccoon, Dale goes after the raccoon, and Ladybird, the raccoon bandit, and Dale are all out on the loose. They're in the woods and stuff. It's a great episode. It's really funny. It's got really funny quotable lines in it, especially from Dale. It's got a really cool plot. Yeah, I love this episode. I love this episode. It will always be among my favorites from season 4, I bet. Great episode. Great episode. Number 6, Naked Ambition. Oh my gosh, I love this episode. It's pretty funny. And I saw a really funny YouTube poop this episode too. That's called Bobby Hale's a Big Fat Pervert, which, unfortunately, it got blocked years back from Fox. But fortunately, like someone last year, I think, remade this video and re-uploaded onto YouTube. And yeah, that's great YouTube poop. But yeah, even outside the YouTube poop though, this episode is great. It's great. It's got a really good plot. I really like the plot of Bobby accidentally seeing Luann naked at the river, and that becomes a really big problem. And and Connie later accusing Bobby and Joseph of peeping at her. That's an awesome plot point. That's a pretty funny plot point. And not to mention, I also love the subplot in this episode too, with Dale, Bill, and Boomhauer all being in that mental place or whatever. Yeah, that's a really funny subplot. It's almost as great as the main plot of the episode. This episode is so good. It has an awesome main plot, and it has a subplot that's almost just as awesome as the main plot. Yeah, it's so good. I love this episode. I love the comedy in it. I love Khan's got some pretty funny lines in the episode. Yeah, Min does too, with how they try to convince Connie that Bobby Hill's not her boyfriend, Chandler Song is. And Khan seeing Luann naked at the end on accident, pretty dang funny. Great episode. Always be among my favorites. Number 5, Hank's on Board. Great episode. I haven't seen that many people put this on their top 10. Have I seen anyone put this on their top 10? No, I don't think I have. I think I might have seen people put this on their top 20. But for me, this episode, I love this episode. I think it's been one of my favorites for at least over 10 years now. And it's a great episode. It's one of the episodes that's centered to the Hank, Dale, Bill, and Boomhauer friendship, and that's what I really like. I really like the plot of Hank, Dale, Bill, and Boomhauer. These 4 guys all going out on a big beach trip, along with Peggy, Nancy, Bobby, and Joseph. It's great. I really like how later in the episode, Hank and the guys get stuck outside the boat because they didn't put the ladder from the boat down before jumping off the boat, and they're like stuck in the water together. It leads to some great dialogue between them. And honestly, probably my favorite scene in the episode though is the car scene. The car scene before Hank moves on to the B car, and they're all talking, and Hank accuses Bill of ruining a perfectly good comedy routine. That's a pretty funny scene. Yeah, great episode, great comedy in it, and I think it deserves to be on the list. Number 4, I Don't Want to Wait for Our Lives to Be Over. I think there's a longer version of this title. Yeah, either way, the title of this episode, definitely not one of the best titles in the show, but whatever, that's a nitpick. This episode itself is great. It's another one of those awesome Bobby-centric episodes. It's a great episode where it's Bobby's 13th birthday, and later in the episode, he discovers that Joseph has hit puberty and all that. It's an awesome episode. I've seen other people put this in the top 10, and I can see why, especially since I have it in my top 10 too. It's a great episode, and probably my favorite scene in the episode is the scene where Bobby punches Joseph in the face twice. Yeah, if you slow down the frames, if you slow down the images, the frames and all that, while Bobby punches Joseph, there's some pretty funny animation shots on there, in my opinion. There's one shot where Joseph looks like he's sneezing, all funny. Yeah, this episode's great. It's got some great interactions between the awesome trio of Bobby, Joseph, and Connie. Got some great lines from Dale, and it's got a cool subplot with Hank and Peggy. Overall, a great episode. I think it's always been one of my favorites, and it deserves to be on this list. Number 3, The Witches of East Arlen. Now, I remember not loving this episode as much when I was little, but I think since over a couple years ago, I started to love this episode even more than I did before. This episode is so good. It's such a great episode, and it has one of my favorite celebrity cameos of all time in the show, David Cross as Ward. Yeah, it's awesome hearing David Cross his role on Ward. It's awesome. It's great how he's voiced. It's great how he's voiced by David Cross, and Ward is my favorite one episode King of the Hill character. Yeah, it's awesome. I really wish they put him in another episode along with his other wizard buddies. And the plot of this episode is pure gold, with Bobby joining a Ward and his wizard gang, and Hank later discovers that it's a bad group. That's a bad group for him to be in, and it's a great episode. It's got really funny comedy in it, so many quotable lines in it, and really funny dialogue. Great plot. Definitely my favorite episode of season 7. And I think probably my favorite scene in the episode. I don't know. It could maybe be the scene where the Ward and his buddies try to destroy Bobby. That's a really funny scene right there. I don't know. It could maybe be the scene where Hank confronts Ward, and he claims he's fighting. Ward claims he's 5,000 years old. This episode is a pure classic. This episode is a pure classic. So it deserves to be on top 3, and definitely my favorite episode from season 7. Such a great episode.
Number 2, Living on Reds, Vitamin C, and Propane.
Oh, man, it's a shame how Adult Swim doesn't air this one more often. I swear, like I said before in that one rant video that rants about how Adult Swim airs King of the Hill, Adult Swim has only aired this episode once this year, and oh my gosh, yeah. Bro, this episode deserves to be aired more often on Adult Swim. It's such a great episode. Yeah, it's a Christmas episode, but it's not too Christmassy. It doesn't go over the top of the Christmas stuff to the point where it feel weird watching it outside the Christmas season. Yeah, such a great episode. I think this was one of the first few episodes of King of the Hill I found myself watching a lot, like, off the DVR when I was little. I used to watch this episode a lot off the DVR when I was little, and I watched it online. It's such a great episode. The main plot of this episode is pure gold, in my opinion. Yeah. I love the main plot of the episode with Hank and Bobby going out on this big rig trip to Arizona, and Dale and the guys sneaking into the back. That's pure gold. Them sneaking into the back of the rig. That's pure gold, and it leads to some really funny scenes, like the furniture racing scene, and that scene after that where they're all hot at the back of the rig. That's a pretty funny scene right there. That's a pretty funny scene right there. And I burnt a bit there, excuse me. But yeah, this is a great episode. It's an awesome episode about trucking and all that. And yeah, such a great episode. It's always been one of my favorites. And yeah, I also really like the subplot of the episode too, with Peggy and Luann trying to write a Christmas story. Yeah, that's a really good plot too, but definitely not as good as the main plot of all them going out to Arizona and Dale, Bill and Boomhauer getting caught for sneaking into the back later in the episode as Hank and Bobby are at that trucker restaurant. And yeah, that leads to them like sitting in the cab with Hank and Bobby, which leads to some more pretty funny scenes, like the Duck Duck Goose scene and all that. Yeah, and Hank falls asleep and Boomhauer takes charge of driving. Oh, this episode's so great. So great. I wish Adult Swim aired this more often. It's such a great episode, such an awesome episode. It's really fun seeing Hank, Bobby, Dale, Bill, Boomhauer go out on this big rig trip. Such a great episode. It's my favorite Christmas-themed episode of King of the Hill. And I can imagine this episode also being my favorite holiday-themed episode of King of the Hill in general. It's an awesome episode. It's so good. One of the best episodes ever. But it's not number 1 on this list. What's number 1 on this list? Well, you're about to find out. Number 1, A Firefighting We Will Go. Yes! Yeah! I know, I've seen some other people put this episode on number 1, and I agree with them. This episode is freaking awesome. This episode's freaking awesome. I remember when I first saw it on Adult Swim, I didn't really fall in love with it that much, probably mainly because I didn't pay that much attention to the episode. But then, like, over 10 years later, back in, like, 2012, when I was in the first grade, I saw this episode again off Adult Swim one Thursday night, and I fell in love with it. I just had to watch it again. When I got back from school, when I got back from school the next day on the Friday, I went downstairs to my older brother Joshua's room, turned on the Wii, and watched the episode a lot off of YouTube off there, and I kept watching this episode off of YouTube over and over and over and over again. It's such a great episode. I've seen this episode so many times. I can quote almost this whole episode word for word. It's hilarious. The plot of it is pure gold, with Hank and the guys becoming volunteer firefighters, them having trouble getting along with each other. Yeah, it's such a great episode. It leads to some pretty funny argument scenes between them. Like, I love the scene where they spend the night at the fire station place, where they get into that fight that leads to Hank's glasses getting destroyed, a ball getting stomped, Bill being stuck in that slide down thing. Yeah, it's such a great scene. And the funeral scene after that is also hilarious, with them accidentally pantsing Chet Elderson. And there's later maybe kind of like a plot twist or whatever that involves the Arlen firehouse being burnt down. And yeah, that also leads to the guys each telling their own version of how the story was, with how the place got burned down. They're all pretty funny. All these guys' versions of the house getting burnt down, it's all pretty funny. Especially Dale's version. Dale's version is my favorite, where he's all buffed and Bill's a chef and all. It's pretty funny. This episode's so good. Yeah, the subplot of this episode is also pretty funny too, with Peggy's back being thrown out, whatever, from trying to pick Bobby up. Yeah, that's a really good plot too, but it definitely ain't as good as the main plot of the guys all becoming volunteer firemen. This episode's such a great episode. I don't see how it couldn't make it onto the list. It needs to be number 1. It's such a great episode. I've seen it a million times for a reason. I love it. I love it so much. It's such a great episode. The character interactions are pure gold. The plot is pure gold. It's so good. It is so good. It's so funny, and I think I love this episode even more than I did when I was a little kid. Maybe, definitely not way more though, since I also loved the episode a lot as a little kid. This episode is the best episode of King of the Hill, and it cannot be beaten. It's the greatest episode of King of the Hill. It's one of my favorite cartoon episodes ever, and it so deserves to be at number 1 on this list. And that's about it for this list, you guys. Those are my top 10 favorite King of the Hill episodes. Again, if you guys want to, you can tell me in the comment section down below what your top 10 favorite King of the Hill episodes are. And yeah, all that stuff. With all this being said, that's about it for my list, you guys. Bye, everyone, and thank you all for watching the video.